I love Shadow the Hedgehog. I've had a lot of fond memories with the character over my time of being a Sonic fan. From playing rock, paper, scissors with friends to see who could be Shadow during Sonic Tag during recess, to secretly bringing my Shadow superposer to school without my parents knowing. Let's keep that between me and you, they still don't know about that. Crying during his death in Sonic Adventure 2. Spoilers. I've just always liked Shadow, from his cool design to his monotone voice.
Discovering the secret of my past will be nearly impossible.
Oh shoot, I fell asleep. I'm sorry, his voice is so fucking boring. He's been one of my favorite Sonic characters, but why? Simple answer, I have a lot of nostalgia for Shadow, and a lot of my favorite memories of that character, aside from personal ones that I made myself, were from 2001, the year before I was even born. I wanted to figure out why I liked Shadow so much, so I did some research. I checked out a bunch of different media with Shadow the Hedgehog in it from 2001 until 2019. I just needed to find a genuine reason for liking Shadow, and upon doing that research, I've discovered that Shadow the Hedgehog has become completely and utterly assassinated by the current writing and depiction of his character in modern Sonic the Hedgehog media. How do you become almost the best Sonic the Hedgehog character of all time and then devolve into a misused, undeveloped shell of what you used to be? Well, we're going to be taking a deep look into why the character we once knew as Shadow the Hedgehog is in fact dead.
Wonder what you want right now, wonder what you want right now.
After the giant success of Sonic Adventure in 1999, Sega went right to work on Sonic Adventure 2. From the beginning, they wanted the main theme of the game being good against evil. They wanted a character that could challenge Sonic the Hedgehog, somebody who mirrors Sonic and is very much like Sonic, but personality-wise and backstory, he's nothing like him. From there, Shadow the Hedgehog was born, but he went through many different variations. His original name was actually... Tyrios? One second, let me see.
Terios.
Well, that's what it is. Which translates to reflection of. Very, very subtle there, Sonic team. The marketing for Sonic Adventure 2 left Shadow very much so as a mystery, not revealing too much about him. But once when the game released, not only did Shadow the Hedgehog become a fan favorite character, but he became one of the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog characters of all time. Not only being so cool looking and having the coolest abilities, but also having the backstory and purpose that no other Sonic character had before. Your first introduction to Shadow, you're just as in the dark as Sonic is, confused in what's going on, somebody who looks just like Sonic, but it isn't Sonic clearly. The display of new abilities, it's our first introduction to Chaos Control. Sonic's always been that cool character, and having somebody come along that might be cooler than him was very interesting. That's really what this scene set up. It didn't give us any of the deep backstory yet. It was just a showcase in cool against cooler. An ego battle, if you will. Throughout the hero's story, Shadow and Sonic just simply have a rivalry. You don't know too much about Shadow. As the story goes on, Shadow gains more and more respect for Sonic. With Shadow being the ultimate life form, Sonic is able to stack up to that, and it's hard to not be impressed. But once when you reach the dark story, everything comes full circle, and you finally understand who this character really is. Shadow the Hedgehog believes that he was put on this earth and his purpose is to avenge the death of Maria Robotnik, Shadow's best friend and somebody that he had a relationship with, who was murdered on the space colony arc where Shadow the Hedgehog was created. As we all know by now, Shadow mistakes Maria's words for revenge instead of helping humanity and bringing balance to the universe. Shadow not only has this anger for humanity, but he also has this anger with himself for not being able to protect and save Maria's life. Throughout the story, Shadow doesn't cause meaningless violence. Throughout the game, he's actually relatively calm and collected, simply going by the plan that Eggman talks about. But then, in the last story, Shadow the Hedgehog has a conversation with Amy. Everybody needs help. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, everybody needs help in order to save the world. In order to feel like she contributed towards something, she tries to make Shadow do the right thing, begging for his help, pleading for him to save humanity. And thanks to her almost mimicking the words of Maria, he remembers his true reason for being who he is. Giving humanity the opportunity to be who they are, live their dreams, and be happy. That's the reason Shadow the Hedgehog is here. And in that moment, Shadow sheds a tear, remembering his best friend and her wish. He's also feeling this guilt for misunderstanding what she wanted of him. And from there, Shadow the Hedgehog sets off to do what he was supposed to do. In the final minutes of the game, Shadow hears the voice of Maria, reminding him of his true purpose. Using up all of his energy, he defeats the Bio Lizard alongside Sonic, but it causes the death of Shadow the Hedgehog, fulfilling his true purpose in saving humanity. It's a beautiful moment and is without a doubt the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog story and the greatest ending to a Sonic the Hedgehog story ever. Shadow the Hedgehog would go down as an icon, one of the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog characters ever because of his amazing character arc. You felt for Shadow, you rooted for Shadow, not only because he was just a cool looking character and you wanted to like him, but because he was just a great character overall. Shadow died here, and it should have remained that way. It was a perfect arc, and there was no need to continue it, but Takashi Iizuka, my man, he brought him back because he was disappointed in the death of Shadow. He was disappointed in Shadow's death. How are you disappointed in one of the greatest character arcs in all of Sonic the Hedgehog history? At this time, Sega and Sonic Team fed back into a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog fan feedback by answering their wishes, and one of them was to bring Shadow back because he obviously became a fan favorite. So in the next game, Sonic Heroes, he returned. Now, I am actually not object to how they handled Shadow's return. Do I wish Shadow didn't return? Yes. Do I like how they handled it? I actually do, even though there is a Shadow character arc further down the line that I think handles it way better. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Amnesia storylines. I think they're very cheap in terms of storytelling. There are much better ways to handle stuff like this, but I guess getting knocked down from the space colony arc to Earth, yeah, maybe you might experience amnesia. Throughout the game, Shadow has this internal monologue of if he is real, who is he? Trying to find this understanding of his purpose and place in this universe and world. And of course, having the support of Rouge and 123 Omega, fighting alongside him and just being friends. You don't really see Shadow with friends, and this was our first time really experiencing that. At the end of the game, Shadow's arc becomes, I don't know who I am. But it doesn't matter because I am who I say I am, and I am the ultimate life form. Shadow the Hedgehog's character is very conflicted and tortured and damaged. He's seen a lot, he's been through a lot, but he still does what he's supposed to. Shadow might have this rough exterior, he might look cool, he might act cool, but at the inside, Shadow has a heart, a very big heart and a very big soul. Shadow's main purpose was to give humanity happiness and joy. Let them pursue their dreams and live life. Shadow sticks by that, even though he's not as outgoing and happy-go-lucky as Sonic. Shadow is empathetic. He's a human, and therefore you connect to the character more. You care for him. You want him to succeed and do well. And although I stated that I think Shadow the Hedgehog should have stayed dead, I think they handled it in a decent way, and it was still a really good arc for him. So when you have this fresh, hot new character that has two successful character arcs and a giant growing fan base, what do? You make a spin-off. Now, to this point, I have loved Shadow. I think he's a great character, if not the best Sonic the Hedgehog character ever. But what they did here ruined his character. They completely abandoned everything that they set up with Shadow previously in Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes. In the first cutscene, the very first cutscene, they throw everything out of the window. First, Shadow in Sonic Adventure 2 realizes that he is supposed to be in the world to save humanity and protect them and give them happiness and joy. But here, nah, f*** them. Let them all perish. Screw them. You see those aliens falling out of the sky? Yeah, they don't matter. That's an everyday occurrence, you know, like when you're walking down to 7-Eleven and Shadow just sees them all the time. It's just another day of aliens falling out of the sky and wreaking havoc on the city. Number 2, Shadow seems to still be obsessed with who he is, even though in Sonic Heroes it was established that Shadow doesn't care who he is who he says he is. They clearly weren't able to come up with an intriguing story to build off of Sonic Heroes with, so they just brought back Amnesia because, hey, it's easy. It ruined Shadow's character, it makes me angry, this game just pisses me off in every way, it created brand confusion. The fact that anybody thought this was a good idea and then pursued it makes me think just like Shadow. Pathetic humans.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
But thankfully, something came along that created one of, if not the best Shadow character arc in any Sonic game ever. That being Sonic 06. No, I am not joking. If you guys know me, you know that Sonic 06 is not only my favorite Sonic game, but my favorite video game ever. Now, I don't want to get too deep into why, as that is its own video, but I do want to state why Shadow the Hedgehog has the best character arc in that game, and it has the best Shadow character arc ever. The main villain of Sonic 06 is Mephiles the Dark, and some people can argue that that was the last great Sonic the Hedgehog villain. He's great, he psychologically challenges all of the characters, makes them make hard decisions. He's just an agent of chaos. He's an entertaining villain, and he has a very close close relationship with Shadow in this game. Mephiles reveals that eventually humanity will turn on Shadow, as in this game, Shadow the Hedgehog has embraced humanity fully, working with them as he's now a member of GUN. As you can see by expressions and body language, Shadow is hurt by this. He does not like this whatsoever. It depresses him and makes him sad. Shadow in this game is empathetic, he cares for other people, he has friends, he works with others. I feel like a lot of people mistake Shadow's resting bitch face as just not caring, when that's not the case. He just has a resting bitch face. Shadow's a good dude, so when he hears this news, it does not rest well with him. But no matter how hard Mephiles tried to turn Shadow to the dark, Shadow says this:
"Why risk your life for those who will persecute you later?
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have."
This was the natural progression for Shadow's character, and is a lesson that everybody should take. You determine your own destiny. They challenged Shadow the Hedgehog. The main thing with Sonic Adventure 2 was Shadow not believing humanity and hating humanity and thinking that they were horrible people, but discovering that they're good people and that he should work with them. So what happens when he discovers that humanity will turn on him and that they are evil people? It's character growth. It shows how far Shadow's come, and it shows his true character. Sonic 06 was the last mainstream Sonic game to heavily feature Shadow. After this, Shadow wasn't in a main Sonic game until Sonic Generations, which was in 2011, but even then, you couldn't play as him and he just had one speaking line. Why is this, and why did it happen? Well, as we all know, Sonic 06 was not received well. Sega was doing some major reworking with Sonic the Hedgehog, trying to do something different, and one of those things was making Sonic more kid-friendly and toning everything down. Shadow the Hedgehog is not very kid-friendly, and he's not a very toned down character. He's not a quipper, he's not a jokester, and as I'm sure you guys can imagine, this change of writers and direction with Sonic has completely ruined the Shadow the Hedgehog character. Our first real glimpse into what a new Shadow the Hedgehog could look like was in Sonic Boom. He was in both the cartoon and the video games and was horrible. He was a schoolyard bully, he was a little punk, he was annoying, he was too cool for school, and he didn't like anybody. Shadow being a villain at first and being a jerk is okay. That was what it was like in Sonic Adventure 2, but in Sonic Adventure 2, he had a backstory, a purpose, a reason for being the way he was, but in Sonic Boom, he's just thrown in there for fan service, but it's not fan service because they completely butcher the character. Shadow doesn't hate friends, he doesn't hate fun, he doesn't hate people. And if this is what they wanted him to be in Sonic Boom, whatever. Sonic Boom's dead, it's not a thing anymore. But how did this translate over into real Sonic? It translated perfectly. Shadow's next real appearance was in Sonic Forces. He had a role in the main story and his own DLC. Both were horrible depictions of the character, showing him as a too cool for school kind of guy. He's ruthless, he doesn't care about the well-being of others, he beats people up, he doesn't like interacting, he has no purpose in the story, and that's the thing. Shadow the Hedgehog needs a purpose. The best depictions of Shadow have story arcs with the character. He's not just thrown in there. He doesn't just have an adventure. He needs to have a purpose. He needs to have a reason for being there, and Sonic Forces didn't have that. This game didn't have the origin and realization of who Shadow the Hedgehog really was. It didn't have Shadow coming to terms with the fact that he doesn't know who he is, but he doesn't care who he is who he says he is. It's not a game where Shadow the Hedgehog faces the fact that humanity will turn on him and that he will determine his own destiny. No, this is just Shadow the Hedgehog beating people up. He's a lackey, he's a goon, he's not an instrument in the story, and it didn't stop there. Team Sonic Racing released 2 years later, and Shadow the Hedgehog was once again ruined. Once again just being depicted as an annoying, jealous, egotistical asshole. I have no idea why Sega did this, and yes, Sega did this. Apparently, Shadow the Hedgehog is not allowed to have any kind of character or relationships with anybody, not even Rouge or Omega. No romantic or platonic relationships, no. Shadow the Hedgehog is just a blank piece of paper. He is nobody anymore. The Shadow the Hedgehog that we once knew is dead. Somebody who was once the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog character of all time, who saved the universe, who sacrificed himself, who went on an internal struggle and journey to discover who he was, is now just a schoolyard bully who doesn't care about anything. Many fans' favorite character no longer represents what he used to represent. He's been turned into a one-note stereotype. Even places where there can be good storytelling with these characters have completely killed Shadow as well. The IDW comics are great, but if there's one thing that's wrong with them, of course it has to be Shadow because of the stupid mandates Sega has in place. What used to be the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog character of all time has now been reduced to a passive, egotistical jerk. Maybe one day things can go back to the way things were, but for right now, all I have to say is sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Everything that's perfect.